Alrighty then, it seems that we're live again. Welcome to another broadcast of DojoLIVE. We're broadcasting live from near South Mexico City office. And today we have Zvi Band. Zvi is CEO of Contactually. And we're also going to have, we're glad to have Nearsoft's CEO, Roberto Martinez, as a co-host, who was kind enough to set aside a good chunk of his time to be here today, which I appreciate. And Zvi he was, like I said, he's the co-founder and CEO of Contactually. And Zvi, well, he's a man of many hats, but I'll just tell you in a few words what I have here, and then I'll let Zvi do the talking. He was named a Washingtonian Tech Titan member of Mindshare. You know, you're going to tell us what that is. Zvi Band is a seasoned entrepreneur, developer, strategist, and startup advisor. He has unique expertise in both technical and non-technical operations, which is cool. And Zvi is also an active public speaker, frequently participates on technology panels of Tech Cocktail, WordPress, DC, DC PHP, and DC Rug events, just to name a few. Zvi, welcome to our show today, and also welcome Roberto.
Carlos and Roberto, thank you so much for having me from the sunny, beautiful city of Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Zvi, and what an impressive bio. Thank you for accepting, being with us and with all the audience that is watching us now.
My pleasure. There's one slight inaccuracy, Carlos, that you mentioned.
Oh, absolutely, please.
You mentioned that I'm a developer, or like that I'm still an active developer. And it's true that like I am a developer. However, like one of my challenges is on a day-to-day basis. One of the byproducts of Contactually being successful is we've hired a lot of engineers who are a lot smarter than me, and they actually don't let me code anymore. So I've kind of have this kind of like unfortunate ability of like saying that like I used to code every day, and now like I code like every night, because during the day we have a lot of smarter engineers that say, no, Zvi, you go run the company, we'll take care of the code. We don't really want you in the code anymore.
Okay, so that means, correct me if I'm wrong, what I understand is that you're now focusing more on the entrepreneurial side, of the business side of the equation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that and as Roberto probably may experience as well, is that as the company grows and as you hire more people, a good hire is someone that will take something away from you, meaning that they're going to be doing your job in some way. And to the point where now, at first I gave up the ability to code every day, and then I gave up the ability to manage the product, and then I gave up the ability to manage the product strategy. I gave up the ability to run payroll. I gave up the ability to be the one making offers. We've kind of, as the company grows, you kind of give away more and more of your Legos to other people, because you have found better and smarter people to work for you to do those things.
Excellent, I understand. Thanks for clarifying that part, Zvi. That was very, very useful, and I'm sure it will be for our audience as well. Okay, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump in straight to the topic. Your participation today has a very specific topic and focus, which is taking planning seriously, improving the act of planning. Before I start with my questions and all those interesting items, you use the term taking planning seriously. And I wonder if there's any other way in which planning should be taken. I mean, if you're planning, you should be taking seriously. But why are you emphasizing the fact that planning should be taken seriously, and how can the act of planning can be improved?
Yeah, absolutely. So
go ahead, Zvi. The mic's all yours, by the way. So please.
Absolutely, and of course, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in. I don't like just standing on a soapbox and talking for a while. Yes, I do that a lot, but I'm always best when it's interactive.
Absolutely, we'll do that.
To address the kind of the question you just asked about taking planning seriously, I think everyone knows that everyone thinks that planning is important, right? It's good to have a plan. The line that I keep on repeating internally is, if you fail to plan, then plan to fail, right? That is something that you do have to care about. In terms of taking it seriously, I think that the difference in the change you have to make in your head is it actually needs to be a core part of your company's operation. That planning and figuring out what you're going to do next has to be something that is built into the company's DNA. So, for example, let me tell you a story. We always knew planning is important, right? And we said, all right, well, let's do it. We looked at different systems, and we said, all right, well, let's use something called OKRs, right? OKRs is a commonly accepted, especially among tech companies and startups, OKRs, which stands for Objectives and Key Results. That's something that everyone knows is a good idea. What we saw, however, is after kind of a couple cycles, around 6 or 9 months of doing it, it wasn't working, meaning that only half the team was filling it out, or we would fill it out and we wouldn't be and we wouldn't be paying attention to what we're doing, or people would be filling it incorrectly. And we kind of said, oh well, but we said plan is important, and we've given this tool. Why aren't people doing it? And what turned out is like, yeah, we said we should do it, but we weren't taking it seriously enough. So fast forward to today, and we can obviously talk about the evolution of it. Every month, at the beginning of the month, the company shuts down for half a day. We don't do any work. The only thing the company does is plan. We plan for the month ahead. And that's a very hard decision to make as a company owner, to say, we're literally going to take our salespeople off the phones, our support people off the support line, our engineers off the code base, and we are just going to sit in a room and we are going to plan out what we're going to do the rest of the month. And instead of saying, hey, we want everyone to do this, we are actually going to hold every team lead accountable and have clear metrics up on the wall that shows the percentage completion that each team has done, whether or not your team has actually planned for the upcoming month, down to the individual person. And instead of having a off-the-shelf solution like OKRs, we really actually spent days as a leadership team iterating and iterating and iterating to find the planning methodology that works for us. And so I think there's a very, very big difference between everyone saying, yeah, planning is important, and really taking it seriously.
Okay. Zvi, I'd like to ask you something very specific. When you use the term planning, are you using it loosely in a way that can be applied to any startup company or setting, or are you referring to planning as in like Scrum, Sprint, iterations? You mentioned iterations, etc. Can you please elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, we use planning as the general term for breaking down an overall strategy into specific actions that you're going to do, right? So, obviously a sprint is, breaking up, a large chunk of work into smaller chunks of work that you're going to do over the next 2-week sprint. That's obviously something that we do independent of this. But so, for example, planning for us is a way of almost, for the most of the month, removing the strategy out of it, and really then diving and allowing us to execute for an entire month, because we have condensed the strategy part into one specific time. So, for example, we know that one of our goals as a company is to grow revenue by a certain percentage each month, right? And if we spent 30 days out of the month wondering and sitting around and going, well, how are we going to grow revenue by X percent this month? That would be a lot of wasted cycles. Instead, we decide, all right, we sit down with our executives in the room. how are we going to grow by X% this month? Marketing, you're going to do this. Sales, I'm going to do this. Product, these are things that we're going to work on to achieve this, right? So we're able to take a kind of a strategic goal and break that down to specific actions. So then the rest of the month, sales knows exactly what they're going to do. Product, we know the exact features that we're going to release, that we're going to work on over the coming sprints. Engineering, they know the bugs that they need to fix. So I think there's a big difference between like planning, breaking up big chunks of work, to actually translating the overall strategy and the high-level things that you want to do into exactly what you need to do that specific month. And so I think that's one of the key things to planning. And then, of course, it's up to each individual, but we then, we have teams that then say, all right, at the beginning of every week, we pull up our monthly goals, and then we say, okay, this is what I'm going to do today, right? This is what I'm going to do to like Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. And then for each individual may then may start the day saying, hey, well, these are our weekly goals. What are the specific things that I'm going to do at this very moment? And that becomes very powerful, because then you're able to remove the strategic overhead and the decision paralysis that so many of us face. And instead, all you're doing is operating off of a clear list of actions that you need to take.
I see. What you're describing, Zvi, seems to me, let me word my thoughts. I'm a little slow sometimes. Yeah. Well, when you were mentioning how you're doing things, how you do your planning and the criteria behind the planning, and also you mentioned OKRs. We're going to leave the OKRs part or aspect aside and focusing on the way you do your planning. Is it like a top-down process, or how does it work to make it more effective?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I would take a step back and say the key thing that you should do is, I think it takes a lot of work to, one, sit down with your leaders, with your executive team and even the entire team, and try and understand, how should we plan, right? Again, take planning seriously. How should we plan? How should we set things up? How should I set things up in such a way that we're going to be effective? And then second is really making sure you maintain a tight feedback loop. So, for example, every month when we set goals, the last step of setting goals is then asking our employees completely anonymously, hey, how did that goal setting process go? What can we do better next month, right? And then we keep on iterating. So we've actually changed our goal setting process numerous times to really make sure that we're building the best system for our team at that moment.
Excellent. Excellent answer. I appreciate that, Zvi. Before we go any further, I'd like to ask Roberto. Roberto, do you have any questions? I'd like to invite the audience as well to send us their questions, just as a quick reminder. Okay.
Well, one question that I'm, that I'd like to ask Zvi is, have you found that planning for the next one is the ideal time frame, or instead of planning for the next 2 weeks or the next 3 months? I'm not sure if before choosing the month setting for planning, you try different approaches and then find out that 1 month was like the ideal for your team.
Yeah, it's a great question, and a month seems to work very well in that you can break it down into achievable tasks versus quarterly, or quarterly or annual goals, which might be hard to look at and help you ask what am I going to do today. What we do, however, in our planning method is actually we've built a planning method called 30, 60, 90, and what that is we basically have, so everyone has, it's a little more complex than that, but everyone has 3 columns, and that column represents the current month, the following month, and the month after. So we are planning, everyone is always planning 90 days out, but the thing that they're really focused on is, okay, well, what am I going to do in the next 30 days? And then you have a rougher idea of what I'm going to do in the next 60 days, and then a rougher idea of what I'm going to do in the next 90 days. And that makes planning easier because you're not starting each month with a completely blank slate. You're able to say, for example, when I was doing my April planning, I was able to say, because when I did my March planning, obviously I did my March goals, I gave tentative April goals, and I gave tentative May goals. I was able to say, all right, well, this is already what I said I'm going to do in April, so let me copy and paste that, and then these are the other things I want to do. Either other things that have popped up, or things that I want to do in March that I didn't do. And so always keeping kind of a running 90-day list, it does provide, I think, that level of long-term vision, but then also really making sure that your month, that 1 month column is really clear, also ensures that you're breaking it down into a small enough chunk that you can plan appropriately.
Cool. Very good. Very good explanation.
Thank you, Zvi. Thank you, Roberto, for your question. I'd like to pause for just a few seconds to remind the audience that they can send us your questions. Just go to, if you're watching us on our page, just go to the Be Part of the Conversation link, which is right there on the player, and just click it, and it'll take you to a Q&A window where you can just send us your questions. Okay, yeah, Zvi, I have another one here for you. Is you mentioned that every so often you would gather your entire team for X amount of time and just focus on planning. My first question is, how do you offset the cost of having the whole company be entirely devoted solely to planning?
Yeah, and again, that's very hard. It's very hard to do, right? Saying that salespeople, for example, salespeople being the ones that you can maybe most directly translate, they're doing fewer calls, therefore they're not bringing in as much revenue for the company, or engineers, having a rough hourly cost, and therefore then, they're not working, and then therefore that's cost. Our answer to it is the opposite. Well, what happens if we don't plan properly and they're working on the wrong things, right? What happens if an engineer spends a month on the wrong feature? What happens if marketing builds out a campaign that is different from our overall strategy? Or what if sales is using an outdated playbook, an outdated strategy? So I think, and you probably agree, the cost of that is a lot higher than spending, one morning a month. So let's say, 1/40th of a business month, dedicated to making sure that what we're doing the remaining, 39/40ths of the month is as accurate as possible.
I see. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It reminded me.
And that's one of the things as leaders, right? I think as leaders we're faced with that common thing, right? Of having to, get everyone out of that, of that day-to-day pain. Having managers, who may come to you panicking, saying, "Oh my God, we can't do this," with taking kind of a long-term view and saying, "No, like we really need to make sure our month is as effective as possible," and then that completely justifies those investments, like taking half a day off for planning.
Mm-hmm. I see. We have just a little comment here. We have a saying here in Mexico, which roughly translated would be something like, cheap turns out to be very expensive.
Exactly.
Okay. So yeah. So it's it's a popular saying here, but but you get the idea. I mean, it's definitely I'm with you all the way.
There's no such thing as a good shortcut, right?
Exactly, exactly. Or even what it seems to be a cheap shortcut turns out to be very costly further down the road. So, okay. See, Roberto, as you know, I have a whole bunch of other questions, and we're still waiting questions from the audience. But Roberto, you want to go ahead and
Yes,
do another one of yours?
yeah, you were mentioning that you have these columns of 30, 60, 90 days, and people go for planning for that to have like an idea of not only thinking very operational daily by daily, but have like a vision of what they are going. How do you normally, track the progress, or how do people normally track the progress of whatever they're doing for their soul, review?
Yeah, absolutely. So and this actually carries over from OKRs. OKRs and any planning method shouldn't necessarily be a measure of employee performance per se, right? Meaning that you shouldn't necessarily look at someone's goals and like the goals that they're writing for themselves and whether or not they hit them as a sign of whether or not that's a good employee. Because then there's the perverse incentive for the employee to naturally set lower goals or set more achievable goals, right? We want stretch goals. We want them to think about what's best for the business. We want them to push themselves. We want them to not be afraid to say, hey, I set these big goals and I failed on them. We're okay with that. We want to make sure that they go in having a clear idea of what they're supposed to be doing, what they should be doing. So I think that's a really powerful difference. So we decouple this from like our normal performance review process. What we do though, and this is again when I talked about being more complex, we do actually have 4 columns in our monthly planning, which means every month that we plan, there's the current month, the next month, and the following month. There's also a column before for the previous month. So every month that you're that you're planning, the very first thing you do is take a look at, you make a copy of your previous month's plan, and then you kind of mark off in that first column, which is now for the previous month, did I do these things, right? So I'm able, for example, I can look at my current 30, 60, 90, and I can see, all right, in March, I had 11 discrete actions that I needed to take, and I did 9 of them. And so that is really helpful. And then, if I had a manager, my manager could sit down with me and kind of see, all right, cool, why didn't we achieve these things? Are they carrying over? What are the challenges we're facing? And that ends up being kind of a larger problem. So that's a really powerful thing. So it is always helpful, to your point, Roberto, of always kind of having a look back in the rearview mirror to see what did you actually do last month.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Zvi. Thank you, Roberto. We have a question from the audience. This is from our very own VPO, Vice President of Operations, Julio Gonzalez. Julio, thank you for sending us your question. Julio is asking the following. Well, he says, not sure if somebody asked before. He says, but how do people react to a monthly activity planning? Don't people think it's a lot of overhead? Some comments from people doing it every 3 months is that it's too often. What do you say about this, Zvi?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I initially thought that our employees would not take it seriously, and yeah, I mean it seems like, and sometimes it seems like kind of like that when that Monday morning comes by at the beginning of the month, they're like, oh great, we've got to do this again. Didn't we just do this like 4 weeks ago? There is kind of that attitude. But when we've asked people then kind of later on in the month, is it helpful that you have goals and helpful that you have a plan for the month? And 9 times out of 10 they say absolutely yes. And so we do make sure that we follow up on that. That is a very important thing because, again, we're human beings. We know that we should be focusing on the long term, but we all always optimize it for the short term. But having these kind of forced planning sessions on us forces us to think long term, and we know, while that morning we may want to go out for breakfast, or we may want to get on the phone, or we may want to start coding or something like that, or I may want to be answering my emails. We know that planning is something that actually helps us out long term, and that helps people buy into it over time. So I think month over month that we've done this, it gets people buy into it more and more because they realize not only is this just routine, it's just part of the company, but it's actually a very important part of our company.
Very good. Thank you.
Did we lose Carlos?
Yeah, maybe.
So yeah, actually, maybe this is a good time to ask you, Roberto. So what planning has Nearsoft done? I mean, do you do quarterly plans? Do you do quarterly schedules, monthly? How do you normally work?
Well, we do a plan every year. At the end of every year, we already have a very established strategic goals for the company.
Okay.
And then what we do is that we quarterly plan for each individual in the company. We use OKRs, and the idea is that every OKR is aligned with, you know, one or more of the strategic goals that we have in the company, and that's what we're doing right now. And of course, we have, all these struggles of, buying in the process, following up, and checking in and all the stuff.
Yeah.
But it is part of the nature.
And so a couple things that we've done is, one is to ensure that, like, we definitely face, again, people would say, like, oh, I'll do it later, or even executives will say, like, hey, I have something else to do. A little hack that we've done is, we now are, the way that we built our system is, the system knows and measures whether or not people have filled out their OKRs each month, and or for you each quarter, and we then just have it up on the board. We say, all right, right now, 85% of the company has filled out their goals. 50% of product, 75% of engineering, 85 of customer success, 90 of sales. That all of a sudden, just like, you're just putting up on the board, and then that makes it very easy, because then if 50% of product has filled out their goals and 50% therefore haven't, we can sit down at an executive meeting, or I can simply walk up to our head of product's desk and say, hey, do you see that? You're only at 50%. What's going on? Right? It all of a sudden becomes so clearly measurable. So it's sped up that time that it takes to really kind of get people to take it seriously. So that alone has been incredibly helpful.
Cool. Good tip.
Oh, I just wanted to say that I'm sorry about the. I was just kicked out momentarily due to connectivity issues, and I don't know, Z, if you were able to catch my question, but or if perhaps Roberto stepped in very, very nicely. But my question was, how different is it to think of planning in a SaaS company as opposed to a different type of company that is not software related, that is not engineering related?
No, I don't think it changes. What matters is, every company has goals, and planning is just a matter of breaking down those goals. Obviously, Roberto and I, while you're out, Roberto and I were talking about your kind of like annual planning and annual strategy. It's really just a matter of breaking that down into then, discrete tasks for that month or for that quarter. So I think it's helpful anywhere. What may change, of course, and this is why I really urge companies to don't just kind of take something off the shelf. You can as a starting point, but really make sure it's adapted towards you, because your company might be different, right? You might be fine planning on a quarterly basis because things don't change that much from month to month. Or you might actually need to say, no, honestly, we're not going to do annual planning, we're not doing quarterly planning, we're not doing monthly planning, because every week things change so much that we just need to do week by week planning. Those are some examples. So I really definitely urge people to think about what will work best for their business at that time.
Okay. Thank you, Zvi. That makes it clear for me now. Here's another one from the audience. And this is by our very own Gustavo Serrano. Gustavo, he's right here in the Mexico City offices. Gustavo says, not sure if anyone else asked, but how do you manage failure?
We reward failure.
I'm sorry, say again?
We reward failure, right?
Oh, that's interesting. Could you elaborate?
I mean, failure is something I think, at least in an early stage startup, right? All right, if you're running a nuclear plant and you fail to put the right safety checks in, okay, that's probably not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
But in a startup, a failure means that you tried something new, that you are willing to take a big swing or a big bet, right? Or failure means you learned, and you learned in such a way that hopefully you're never going to repeat it again. Repetitive failure, that's a problem, right? Doing the same thing over and over again is the definition of insanity.
Right.
So, no, I think it's important. That's why I think your goals, you want people to say, I'm going to test out this, or we're going to put in this big initiative, and then hopefully, a lot of the things that they're going to do, when they're doing their monthly wrap up, hopefully they say, yeah, that didn't work, and that didn't work, and that didn't work, because that allowed you as an organization to learn what works and what doesn't work through that process. So we're completely okay with failure.
Oh, okay. There you have it. Well, Gustavo, there you have it. So, and I totally agree with you. There are many of us who have failed numerous times in our lives, and then suddenly everything's, for some reason, starts making sense and working out. Julio Gonzalez, again, our VP, dear VP, he has another question. He says, in the case of a service company, how do you handle the fact of stopping operations and customer service once a month?
Yeah, I mean, so the reality is, there's still maybe some small operations that happen in point in time. If the site goes down, we're not going to tell an engineer, no, you have to, stay planning, for this hour. No, they're going to go fix the website, right? If a customer call comes in, we're still going to take the call, but we're only going to make sure that one person is assigned to it, right? Or we've also had times where, for example, our support team may actually do it later in the day after business hours. It's flexible, right? What matters, though, is not whether or not everyone's doing it at the same time, but really that everyone has a dedicated time to do it, and it has time in their calendar. It's not just like, do your day job, and then, oh yeah, before you go home at night, we expect you to go fill this out, on your own time, but we're not going to pay you for that, right? It's really making sure that that they feel that this is part of their actual job.
Okay. Gustavo. Oh, Julio. That's Zvi's response to your question, and we have another one by Gustavo. I'm going to move a little bit fast because questions are coming in. And so here it is. Gustavo is asking you, how do you set objectives in a high uncertainty scenario? Or what kind of objectives can you set when too many things are moving at the same time and you don't know what will happen next week?
So I believe it's setting the overall high level goals for the company, right? Meaning that, your high level goals will be always to, let's say, grow revenue by a certain amount, or to reduce churn if you're a SaaS business, or to gain 12 new customers. So those high level goals will always stay the same. What you do every week may change, right? But you're able to still maintain that North Star. And we also have made sure that for some roles where there might be way too much changing on a week by week basis, that's fine. We just may reduce their strategic goals to a certain subset, meaning my salespeople, right? They don't necessarily know what calls they're going to take. They just know that yes, they want to improve their call quality by 20%, and they also want to work on this one document. So it may change from role to role, but what matters is that you, especially starting top down at the company level, you maintain that North Star to make sure that everyone is rowing in the same direction, that everyone is going after that larger strategic goal.
And I like your analogy of the North Star, and because I think that the more than 200 people here at Nearsoft, I kind of feel that way with our leaders, including Roberto, of course. So I can relate to that, and a lot of us can, I'm sure. And I think the challenge would be, maybe in a more conventional company, would be how to retain autonomy, or how to achieve goals, specific goals, when you allow your team a great level of freedom or autonomy. So I think that's for conventional companies or some other type of companies, that's going to be the main challenge. That's a personal note on my end. Unfortunately, we don't have the problem here at Nearsoft, so
yeah, but
we're good. We're good.
People can still have autonomy, right? People can still have autonomy, but people can still need to know, what the goalposts are, right? And planning, especially on a company level and a team level, isn't necessarily saying you do this and you do this. It's saying these are the things that we need to do this month. These are the campaigns that need to launch, right? Then if someone in marketing sees that, okay, one of our goals is to launch this campaign, they have the personal freedom to then plan and sit down with the rest of the marketing team and plan and gain autonomy to figure out how do they collectively want to do it. Because as CEO, I don't care who does what in the organization, right? As CEO, I care about this initiative being launched or us hitting this metric, not necessarily how it happens. And so people do have autonomy. They just need to know, again, your job as leaders, as managers, as VPs, as directors, is to make sure that you set those goalposts.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Roberto, you were going to say something? Go ahead, please, by all means.
Okay, just confirming what Zvi was saying about autonomy. Agree with that.
Oh, absolutely. So, and I agree that there shouldn't be any kind of watching over the shoulder type of attitude in order for things to really work out. That's when you have a happy team. We're happy with everything. Everything flows smoothly. I like to, which leads me into asking Roberto, do you have any other questions? I have a 3 or 4 more, but I like to pass on the mic to you if you have one.
Yeah, go ahead for now, and I'll wait for to ask.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Roberto. And again, whoever's listening, watching, send us your questions. You know how to do it. Okay, here it is. And this is more like a culture-related type of question from my end. And I noted this because the expression that you used pulled my attention. Is being the bad guy every month really needed to elicit commitment from your team, or how would you say that it affects the teamwork spirit? I mean, I say the bad guy, and I'm quoting you because you become the bad guy once a month. You say so yourself in your blog. So how does this, work out? How does your team view you as being the bad guy, or why do you even say that you're the bad guy in the first place?
Yeah, and maybe to correct myself, sometimes, it's not necessarily being the bad guy, right? I think there's a difference between bad guy means that you're doing something that they don't want to do, right? That's not, and if they didn't want to plan, and I was telling them, you must go do this, right? then yeah, I'm the like against their wishes, then yeah, that's a problem, and yeah, I'd be seen as kind of doing a negative action. I think that the difference is that I think it's important again for us as managers and leaders is to make sure that our team has buy-in. And so we have asked our team and really made sure that our team buys in and believes in the ability, in the necessity of, for example, in this case, having good planning. And we said, okay, great. We all believe that we are that planning is an important thing. Okay, great. We're going to plan on a monthly basis. Do we all agree? Yes, we all agree. I like it. Let's do it. Okay, great. They provide feedback on how we do it. We built a system that people agree to. What I have understood and what we got all of our team to do through that process is we got to them to commit to the act and the idea of planning. It is now simply our job as managers and as leaders to ensure they follow through on that, right? Again, I'm not telling them what to do. I'm simply saying, you committed to doing this. You committed to setting your goals this month. I'm helping you. You haven't done that yet. Help me. You said you're going to, though, so you're not following through, right? Tell me what's blocking you. Tell me what you need. And it becomes, again, we're on their side, right? It is something that they agree that they want to do. You are simply working with them to do that. And that is a very powerful differentiator, right? I think, and that's how we work with most of our deadlines, for example. On our engineering team, obviously we're agile, but when we're working on a large feature release, we get them to commit to a date and then say, okay, you committed to the date. I am now here to help you follow through on that commitment. Tell me what we need to do this week to do that, right? Tell me what we need to do this month. Tell me what's blocking you, because you committed to this and I'm holding you to your commitment. And I think that differentiator is helpful than just being the guy policing everyone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Great. Thank you, Zvi, one more time. Roberto? Roberto,
Sorry.
you with us? Okay. Yeah, there you are. Roberto, I understand you have questions, right? So go ahead. Mike's all yours.
Well, we're talking about the autonomy, but how do you normally manage dependency? Meaning that one team needs to accomplish something so other team uses that to accomplish their goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's where planning start to become more complex. Do you have like a map, or how do you put all the individual goals together and make sure that everything is going to the same place?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we do have to answer the last question, we do have one central planning document or one planning document for each individual, and then one planning document for all the different team goals. You're right. There are a lot of dependencies, right? Sales needs things from marketing, and marketing needs things from sales. And that's why a key part of the planning process that I think you need to build, and why, again, it's worth shutting down the company all at the same time, is you need collaboration, right? And so literally what our executives do is they will sit together in a room and say, this is my plan for this month. They can all see that my 30, 60, 90. This is what I need from other teams. And so for example, if product said, all right, these are my goals for this month. In order to hit my goals, this is what I'm going to need from sales. Well, our head of sales is in the room, right? Because he is not doing anything but planning at that time. He is able to say, oh, okay, I can help you with that. And then he adds that to his 30, 60, 90, right? And then all of a sudden, then we kind of keep on going around and around. And obviously there's horse trading and saying, all right, well, if you want me to do this, I'm not going to be able to do this. And we're able to kind of work through those dependency issues and then able to say, okay, great, we now have hopefully walked out with all the dependencies solved. And then sales, then your sales lead is able to then go to, let's say, one of his individual sales managers and say, hey, by the way, one of your goals for this month also needs to be providing this deliverable to product because they need this, right? That is how we can kind of help solve those overall dependencies. And that honestly seems to really make a really big difference. Again, that wouldn't be possible if it's asynchronous, right? If it were, sales does it at 6 p.m. on Tuesday and product is doing it at 1 p.m. on Monday. By having, again, everyone in the same room doing it at the same time, it ensures that we're all on the same page together.
Roberto?
Thank you, Zvi.
Oh, okay. Kind of froze for a couple of seconds. Thank you so much, Zvi. That makes a lot of sense as well, and it's kind of falling into the same train of thought that we're having here as Nearsoft. I'm talking about Nearsoft. Okay, here's one more. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them, but we still have 10 minutes.
Yep.
And let's see, we have 2 more questions from the audience. Again, our very own Gustavo Serrano. He's one of our developers here at the Mexico City office. He says, as developers, we have daily meetings about our progress working at specific software features. We talk about what we did yesterday, what we will do today, what is blocking us. How is it different or similar to the monthly planning you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, well, so a daily stand-up, right, is, I would say, it's still an important thing, right? It's just a subset of what your overall monthly planning is, right? So, for example, engineers, we think in terms of sprints, right? 2 weeks, sometimes 1 week, sometimes 1 month, right? And so our sprint planning session is almost the same as like a monthly planning session. So a daily stand-up is simply saying, all right, well, I have this overall plan, right, of what I committed to doing this sprint. How am I going to do it, or what's my status? Similar to that, actually, kind of a reverse way of answering that is, obviously, all of our individual employees do have monthly planning sessions. All the teams do monthly planning, even engineering and marketing and sales and customer success. It's daily stand-ups aren't limited just to our engineering team. Our marketing team has a daily stand-up where all of them will get together and say, all right, here are our goals. Again, here's what I'm working on. Here's what's blocking me. Our customer success team, again, does the same thing. Here's what I'm working on. Here are my goals. Here's what's blocking me. That's really powerful. So I would actually say that what your engineering team is doing is spot on track with what the overall intention is with planning. That actually it's so powerful that I do actually think that what every other team should be doing is also doing daily stand-ups as well.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Zvi, one more time. And let's see, I think we have time for one more question from the audience. Wait, I think I...
Oh, I hope it's a good one.
Should be. Okay. What was the time you had to plan with less information or less than others, and how did you do it?
Sorry, how do you plan with less information?
No, what was the time, tell us about a time that you had to plan with less information or less than the others, less than the rest of your team, and how you do it. How did you do it? That's Gustavo's question again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's completely okay. Again, if you fail to plan, then plan to fail, right? You have to operate on, inconsistencies, right? And so sometimes, for example, if we start off a month, let's say theoretically our marketing leads are down, right? Ideally, we should be able to go into a monthly planning session. All right, we know why our leads were down last month. Therefore, these are the things that we're going to do. Well, instead, but let's say that doesn't happen. So then, yeah, one of our monthly planning sessions, or sorry, one of our monthly tasks that we should be able to execute is we don't have this data, do this analysis, right? Understand what is happening, understand why our marketing leads were so low last month. And then that gives us, so you're basically kind of putting the information gathering right into your overall plan for the month, your strategy of what you're going to accomplish, and then you can say, okay, and then from that, execute on the three top problems that we saw from that. And that's completely okay.
Okay, there you have it, Gustavo. Thank you, Zvi, once again. And let's go back to you, Roberto. Do you have anything else, Roberto? Because we still have about 5 more minutes, and we need to start wrapping up. But if you have any other questions, Roberto, for Zvi, please, now's the time.
No, well, thank you to share with us all the wisdom and the experience that you have had. I think it is a kind of getting discipline about it, right? And I think if you want to make it part of your culture and part of the company DNA, sometimes you have to force it because there will be people that will not like follow up and support the initiative initially, and then with results you demonstrate that planning and especially taken seriously, as you mentioned, is a good thing.
Absolutely, and the easiest thing to do is nowadays the one hack that all of us can take advantage of right now, literally, is we all use Google Calendar or some kind of online calendar. They have the ability for repeating appointments. So set aside yourself 2 hours or 3 hours at the beginning of every month. Set a recurring task and just call that planning. And then what you do in that planning may change, but at least forces you, and by having that time blocked off in your calendar, to just simply just do it. And then you just fill in the details from there. So we're all about habit and ritual here at Contactually.
There you have it, Roberto. Thank you so much, Zvi. And the final one before we go is, I'll just leave this to our VP, Julio Gonzalez. Julio is asking that, or mentioning that sometimes you will still have people that don't want to engage, and that could affect your indicators. How do you motivate them?
You commit to them, right? So I think that you have that. You basically say, all right, well, the entire team committed to doing this. You may not feel this is important, and help me understand why, right? Help me understand is a powerful thing, but getting them to understand that the rest of the team committed, and therefore they are part of the team, and if they want to be part of the team, therefore they will follow what the rest of the team does. That's important. We've done other hacks, for other things. We say, hey, listen, if 90% of the people complete their goals, we're going to buy breakfast for the entire office, right? You can do small little hacks like that where, again, it's worth it. And also leverage social proof, right? This is, everyone else in the company is doing this. Why are you the one person that every month I have to, you don't take it seriously. Every month I have to go after you for this. That becomes a really powerful tool. And then at the same time, if someone is failing to adhere to what the rest of the team has committed to, there might be a bigger cultural issue at stake for that employee. We definitely are very well aware of that.
Yes, and I think in companies, especially, and particularly companies such as Contactually or Nearsoft, where culture is of great importance, I think that's a key topic that shouldn't be overlooked, and just to keep things in balance and in perspective, just to make things work. Zvi, we have we're about to close.
30 seconds.
We're about to close today's broadcast. I really want to thank you for having agreed to be here with us today and for sharing your experience and your views. And so we'll be in touch. Please, at your convenience, send me your your postal address so we can send you these, your tokens of appreciation. And again, thank you so much, Zvi. We'll be in touch. And also, Roberto, thank you for being here with us today. And it was a great talk. And thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. And so does our audience, I'm sure.
Thanks so much for joining, everyone.
Absolutely. You have a wonderful day. We'll be in touch. Thank
Bye.
you all. Goodbye. Have a great day.
Bye.